Welcome back. In this part of the series, I'm going to be teaching you how to get a photo into InDesign and to design your page and start breaking it up with pictures. The first thing I always do when I start a page is to get the pictures in, or the art, whatever visual aid you have, because adding those entry points is what they're called to a page helps break up. If it was a giant wall of text, then nobody would want to read it. It'd be too boring. So you have to add these entry points where a reader can see it, read the caption, and then that might kind of grab them in so they can read the story. Um, and since you got to kind of carve up this page into more manageable sections, it's always easy to start with your pictures because those are some of the most dominant parts of a page. So let's just say that I wanted to put in this photo here. So I have a photo on my another screen, and it's saved up just in a file. So the easiest way to add a photo is just to drag and drop it straight into InDesign. So you'll see I have this photo. I'm in InDesign, and it's going to show that I have it selected, and I can drop it wherever I want. I've released my mouse button. It's just hovering, waiting for me to click and tell where to go. So I want to put this photo right here. Now that's going to give you this giant photo, which if you have a high resolution photo, it's going to be bigger. If you have a low resolution photo, it's going to be even smaller. So if I have this photo here, that's too big for me to manage. You could kind of size it down to a more manageable size, but that's going to alter the frame as well. So the easiest way to get it to work for you is to make a frame, because there's two pieces to a photo object in InDesign, and that's the frame and the photo itself. So to start, I select this frame tool, which is this rectangle with these diagonal lines through it. And wherever I want my photo to go, I'm going to put this frame. So let's say I wanted it to take right here. So now I have a frame, and what I need to do is get the photo into the frame. And that's as simple as just grabbing that photo again and dragging and dropping it straight into the frame. Now you'll notice here that the photo, you can see this brown outline, which is the photo itself, is way too big for this frame. Now you could size it down manually. That takes a little bit of time, but you would just hold shift and to make sure it stays proportional, because if you don't hold shift, then what's going to happen is it's going to squeeze the photo, and you don't want a stretched photo like that. So you would always want to hold shift when you're resizing a photo. But the even easier way to do this is, once you have the photo or frame selected, up here, check this box called Auto Fit, and then choose Fill Frame Proportionally. And 99% of the time, InDesign is going to correctly guess how you want the photo to fill the frame. Or at least make it more manageable, so that from here you can then adjust the frame a little bit more accurately how you want and size it down. Just make sure you're always holding shift so it stays in proportion. Now, the next thing you want to do whenever you place a photo is give it a stroke. Every photo needs a stroke. Very few exceptions. And a stroke is a little border on the outside of the photo to help separate it so it doesn't bleed into the rest of the content. And you're going to do that by just selecting the photo, and up in this top area here, you're going to see, I'm moving my mouse a little, this 0 point, because right now there's no stroke. To add a stroke, all of our pictures have a 0.75 point stroke, and you're going to click that, and now you'll notice our photo has a little black line along the outside, and that's going to be the stroke. You may notice I turned off the grid lines. That's a hotkey for turning off the grid lines. It's W. Every time you click W, you can turn it on and off to kind of have the grid lines there to help you align things. But once you want to take a good look at the page, how it's going to turn out as the reader sees it, you can turn off your grid so that you can kind of take it in its entirety. Now, this works all right, but the next thing you have to do is text wrap the photo, because if you put in text like this, I just pasted a text box here that I had saved from earlier, it's going to run straight over the photo, and of course you don't want that, because you want your text to wrap around the photo, right? So the way to handle that is, first you would move your text box out of the way, and you need to wrap the frame and the photo object. So you're going to click on it, and up here right next to where we put the stroke on the photo, just a little bit farther over, are these 4 text wrapping options. This first one is what we have right now, no text wrap. That's going to let the text go straight through the photo. and you almost never want that. The one you'll use most often is the wrap around the bounding box, and that's going to wrap it around the frame. So if I click this option, our photo is now text wrapped. So when I drag a text box over it, that photo is going to make sure that it pushes the text out of the way so that you can have text wrapping around the photo without having to create like some crazy amount of text wrapping or new different boxes. It's just going to push it straight how you want it. It's going to displace that text. And you can play around with that a little more, resize your text box, but that's the basics. Now in some cases, not very often, but some cases you might have a different image, one that is a different shape. The easiest, most common one, probably besides your typical rectangular photo, is a circle. And InDesign knows this, so if you go over to this rectangle tool on this left, it's the rectangle frame. You right-click that, and now you'll see an ellipse frame tool. Now, ellipse is just another term for like an oval or a circle with different proportions, and that's going to give you options to create an ellipse frame. To make sure it stays circular, if you want a perfect circle, you can hold Shift and then simply draw whatever size circle you want. So now I've just made a circular frame. Now, if you want to put an image inside the circular frame, let's say I wanted to put this image of the Earth in here, I would drag and drop it straight into the frame. Now, we can see InDesign, AutoFit, it pretty well guesses how you want that frame to look. Now, I think this margin looks a little too big, so I can, of course, either size up the photo or size down the frame. I'm going to size up the photo a little bit, so I can hold Shift to make sure it stays proportional, and just increase the size of the photo a little bit, and go ahead and recenter it. Now I have a little bit thinner of a margin. I think that looks a little better. Now, on this one, obviously, if we leave it like the other photo, the text is going to go straight through it, and you don't want that. You could, but if you wanted some kind of different effect, but in this case, we want our words to be readable, so we want to leave it around. You could wrap this frame like you wrapped our other one in a square photo, but that looks kind of ugly. Now you're pushing too many words out of the way. You want the words to be displaced, but just around the object. In this case, the circle, and that's what this final text wrapping option is for. Or I'm sorry, this third text wrapping option is for, and it's wrap around the object shape. So remember how we created the circle frame? We can wrap around the object shape, and now it's going to set that frame that it cares about to be this circle one. And when I bring this text over, now it's actually going to wrap directly around the circle frame. And that gives you kind of a cool effect. You won't always use this, and it's a little bit niche, but sometimes this is how you want to display a photo. And you can also create polygon frames, and even custom shape frames, which I'll show in just a second here. So if you wanted to create a custom shape frame, let's say instead of showing this part of the Earth, this whole Earth, I wanted to show just a part of the Earth. You can kind of freehand a frame and draw it yourself, and that's going to work by grabbing this pen tool, and let's say I wanted some strange wavy globe. I could just, this is kind of messy, but I'm just drawing some random shape here. Any shape you want. Sorry. Any shape you want, you can just make some disgusting little object. Complete that, and now I have some shape. If I wanted to put something in that shape, I could, just like the other frame, grab a photo, drag, and drop it right in that frame. And now I have this completely organic shape that I want to wrap text around. Now, right now, it's wrapped not at all, so the text is going to go straight through it. You can wrap it, again, like any other photo, in a rectangular box, and it's going to displace it like that. Or, again, with our wraparound object, it's going to wrap it straight around Prem's face like that, without the text going through it and without displacing too much text. That's an even more rare scenario that you might want to do this, but a lot of times if you want to do a cutout of somebody to make a more artistic kind of page, especially on a features or a focus page, this can be kind of a useful technique. And then the last text option is just to displace everything else that's within a column. That's this last one. You'll almost never use this, but as you can see, it just cuts out everything in the rest of that column. It's not going to let anything stand next to it. And that's going to be it for this photo and text wrapping video. I know this is a bit long, but photos and text wrapping and carving up your page is just the most important part to designing a page, because that's going to be the groundwork that you lay everything else on.